to EIG's 16th webinar and second fireside chat, a conversation on the resilient digital transformation ecosystem to enable a resilient enterprise. Please have your cell phone handy or another window open and log in to the website, thepolev.com/Greg Schlegel 910, so you can participate in the upcoming questions. Good afternoon, good morning, and good evening. Welcome to the Enhance International Group's 16th in a series of webinars on building and evolving resilient enterprise. Thank you for taking your time to attend, especially in light of the coronavirus and its continued impact to us all. We hope that your family and are healthy and safe. My name is Jim Vries, founder of Enhance International Group, a group of over 40 consultants, consulting companies, and SaaS providers. We're dedicated to empowering your organization's workforce by focusing on our partners' passionate areas of expertise. Our goal is to provide collaborative, experienced thought leadership to enable organizations to deliver self-sustaining, positive margin growth. We hope that you find the information valuable for you and your teams, and we welcome your questions and comments to support your efforts. Since March, we've been having these webinars. We've had every kind of webinar from risk resiliency, applied to the supply chain, IT systems, operations, and quite frankly, the entire enterprise. We've covered the W recovery and 3 Rs with Supply Chain Risk Management Consortium to cover the post-COVID-19 world, covering the 3 stages of respond, recover, and renew. We've covered establishing the building blocks to create an agile, resilient enterprise. We've also addressed cybersecurity and how it can be addressed in an agile framework. We've established a growth portfolio in developing the resilient growth strategy. And we've actually got into artificial intelligence and how to create a resilient enterprise. We've also had another webinar on the same topic on the visible resilient digital ecosystem. And we've also worked on how to empower employees with rapid skills deployment. Today, we'll be focusing again on the visible resilient enterprise. And in future webinars, we'll be addressing a number of topics such as accelerating the launch of resilient products and services. We'll get back into resilient or rapid skills deployment. And we'll get into some AI and some digital technology in some upcoming webinars. So we hope to see you then. Today, we're fortunate to have with us some highly respected leaders in the area of digital transformation. And I'll kick it off with Greg Schlegel, founder of the Supply Chain Risk Management Consortium. Greg?
Jim, pleasure to be here. Just give you a quick thumbnail sketch. We are the Supply Chain Risk Management Consortium. That consists of 29 companies, about 1,500 risk professionals around the globe. They bring tools, techniques, methodologies, and solutions in support of our supply chain risk management framework. And basically what we do is identify, assess, mitigate, and manage supply chain risks for our clients. I also teach supply chain risk management at Lehigh University in Pennsylvania, and also ERM, Enterprise Risk Management, at Villanova University.
Thanks, Greg. And we have with us Dr. Phil Samuel. Phil, introduce.
Hi, this is Phil Samuel from Lean Methods Group. At Lean Methods Group, we specialize in operational excellence, innovation and design, strategy, and then we win digital transformation in all of those 3 fronts.
Great. Thanks, Phil. And we have Tarasia from PROCESScope. Shri?
Yeah, hello everyone. Glad to be here to do the fireside chat. I'm Sri Tarasia from PROCESScope. We are a platform to build fast process solutions to provide insight and visibility into process things that are usually invisible and to make the business processes better.
Perfect. Thanks, Sri.
Thank you.
And welcome to all our participants for joining. Our two other team members that could not have joined are C. Bunevich from Fuse Machines and Leila Rao from Agilextended. They regretfully could not attend. So with that, I just want to make sure that everyone was able to log in to the poll everywhere so that we can have your feedback. And you're also welcome to enter into the browser your feedback at any time in the chat room. We'll be monitoring that. So again, if you could log into another window, it's easiest to do on a cell phone or another window on your computer to this https pollev.com, Greg Schlegel 910. With that, we'll get started. And this is the agenda that we have. We want to make this interactive, but these are some of the major topics that we're going to discuss. We can change and adjust these topics if it comes up. This is, we want as much interaction as possible. So we'll start off, what is a resilient digital ecosystem? We'll provide some background and some statistics around that. Then we'll get into what is a transformational journey, what does it look like? And then how do you enable this RDE to real-time decision-making to drive the sustainable margin growth? At this stage, we hope to be a very fluent discussion. And then why do we want to build it, and what are the major components? So hopefully these are the topics you would like to see. And with that, we'll kick it off with Greg with a bit of statistics and the predictions for 2020 and beyond. Greg?
Yep, thanks, Jim. Interesting set of predictions for 2020 from Gartner. And just like to highlight a few. First and foremost, obvious to the casual observer on the top left is AI. That's going to be, it's going to permeate throughout all industry sectors as we go forward in the next 5 years. Healthcare in the middle, top middle, that's already being leveraged, AI and ML in the healthcare arena to enhance customer experience. The AI and experience on the top right, again, you can see a trend, artificial intelligence and ML going to essentially drive online ads for e-commerce and B2B. Digital society, more and more of the organizations and countries are starting to embrace digital transformation on the top right. Mobile banking on the bottom, that's without question. Banking is looking for a more efficient and effective approach to provide good customer experience. Blockchain is going to be an integral part as we go forward to, one, fight counterfeiting, but also minimize cyber crime, as long as the lawyers, insurance, and accounting professions buy into blockchain. The other issue is on the bottom right, digital transformation. Yes, digitizing the supply chain to us is a must, but for improved performance and for supply chain risk. But just be advised that the time and cost, there is a time and cost associated with digital transformation, as we'll talk about, because it is a paradigm shift.
Thanks, Greg. So open it up for any questions or, in the chat room, if you have any questions. If not, we'll move on. Phil or Sri, do you have anything you want to add to Greg? comments here and what you're seeing?
No, I think I don't have any comments. This is great. It creates the buckets of how what 2020 and beyond looks like. Just
So
All it says
keeping-
is the digitization accelerating at a pace that was, never before. I think the new situations have helped with the acceleration of digital adoption.
Yeah, we're definitely living in a world of accelerated digital adoption forced, where a year ago we were kind of going at the pace of what we could take. Now we're going at a pace on beyond what we can take, I think, and forcing companies that are experiencing digitalizations. So every company is a little bit different, as we know, but there are certain fields like in the healthcare field, as it's mentioned here, that are being really pushed to their limits, being forced by the needs. And it all comes down to the customer need. Is there a return on investment? In this case, in the healthcare, we understand, the vaccines, it's life. And that's a good accelerant in that field to accelerate digitization.
Yeah, and a lot of these technologies, like what Greg was talking about, and if you look into our current state of affairs, whether it is the voting system and the fraud and the claim of the fraud, when you look at fight counterfeit reality in the blockchain, right? Could some of these solutions solve for future ledger-like bulletproofing the process, so that we'll have a much more robust system going forward. It's not just specific to a company, it is also a way of life, how it's going to impact our way of life going forward.
And that's why we call it an ecosystem, the digital ecosystem, to build on what you said, Sri. And also the blockchain, we're still trying to figure it out. Obviously, we don't have it figured out. So the voting is back to filling it out on a piece of paper like we did 40 years ago, because we can't trust our system. So it's kind of interesting. If you look at it, is we're trying to push things, but security is very difficult in the IT world of preventing counterfeit type of activities. Good discussion. We probably could talk an hour on this slide, but we'll move on. So I'm going to move to this slide that we got from our friends at McKinsey. McKinsey's always putting out new articles, which is always good, keeps us abreast of it, and are always very enlightening. Today, right, in this article was recently published. They talk about the first 90 days, which everybody likes to talk about. What do we do for the first 90 days? And they broke it down into sprints of three sprints of 30 days each. And then they broke it apart into 4 different areas: refocus digital efforts towards changing customer expectations. So start with the customer, which is always good. Then use the data that you have and apply some artificial intelligence to improve business operations. That's a little easier said than done, but it's a good vision. And then the third pillar here is selectively modernize technology capabilities, and then increase your organization drumbeat, because everything comes down to the momentum that you drive and how does your company operate. So I think they did a great job, as they always do, in laying this out. And they talk about in the first 30 days, align opportunities to new digital priorities. That's always the first step. Aligning that to your vision of your company, and then assess the performance of the critical decision support models. And this is easier said than done, because you're limited by what you have, and you're trying to overlay AI, and there's not, you're really looking at the data that you believe, that the believable data, I should say, and it's dependent on that. in order for you to move forward. So what data is believable so you can look at that critical decisions to make decisions. And then the third is create right sizing plan, shifting the variable cost structure and begin assessing cyber risks. That's always a good thing to do, and assess where the organization's velocity is needed and driving and where we can work remotely. So I just talked about the first 30 days. You can see what the sprint 2 and 3 are about, but I would say, look at these as guidelines. You really have to assess where you are at in your journey and how fast you can go relative to these. But it's a good model to calibrate yourself and your organization. And building a 90-day plan such as this is a very good exercise to take on. Any comments on this?
One thing that has helped me, Jim, is before even if you launch something, what's the story, right? What's the story of your organization, right? Mm-hmm. Why would you want it? So for sprint 1, when you say align opportunity to new digital priorities, so the problem statement that you are trying to solve for, and if you were to take some of those concepts of agile methodology and look into creating your story and your story points that kind of aligns with some kind of a theme or an epic. So then now you are on a path towards managing your sprints better. So when you're saying sprint 1, 2, and 3, I would take it one level up the way like what would be the story for solving for that sprint 1. That makes any sense.
Excellent point, Sri. Thanks. Very good. Any other comments?
There are questions.
Oh, I was looking for
I
this.
think there was one question. I'm just trying to stay abreast of the chat room here.
Yeah, so can you read that, or somebody read that?
Yeah, I got it. From Mark, the question is for the team, are there competing technologies for cryptocurrency for mobile banking? It's a good question.
I haven't seen anything other than the blockchain technology for cryptocurrency, supporting cryptocurrency. Any other technologies used for that?
Yeah, that's just a little bit out of my sweet spot, so I'm not sure I can really help with that question.
Well, crypto, we want the shakes, right, in mobile banking, I think is the guts of this, right? We want to be able to do those handshakes faster and better than we've been doing in the past. And the question is, when can you dovetail and believe cryptocurrency versus the US dollar or whatever currency you're in? And when is that transformation going to take place? Blockchain has to happen in order for the crypto tech currency to work. It's dependent on it.
I believe that's correct. Yeah.
So if that's the blockchain becomes believable and really works solidly, then we're not going to be able to use cryptocurrency as an exchange. But I can say with confidence that great strides have been made in the last 3 years in blockchain, getting us closer to there. So probably within the next 2 to 3 years, we will get, I would guess within 5 years, cryptocurrency will be a type of currency to use for big deals. They'll start with the big deals and then they'll move into everyday life. But it's not something that is not going to happen. It's just going to happen at this point in time.
Yeah, because there's another question. I think it's related to the McKinsey slide that we're looking at now is, does McKinsey explain why changing customer expectations is the best focus for digital efforts?
That's a loaded question.
Yeah, I'm just...
Mark is always asking the most interesting questions. So I'm going to, Phil, do you want to answer this? I'm going to give it to Phil. I think he could answer.
I think it should be. I think a mistake many companies make is they do digital transformation or embark on digital for the sake of digital. It should be asking the question, what are the changes around us first? So that is changes with customer needs, changes with regulatory, changes with the market trends, changes in technology. But at the end, if the value is created for customer, then you got to ask that for value buckets. What's your value proposition? Is the digital enabling your value proposition? That's question one. Second question is, how is the value delivered? Are you enabling customer for easy to access and solve their problems? So that's a value delivery. How is digital enabling or not enabling it? Third, value creation. So your internal processes, would digitizing it, would that enable better value creation and generate more profit or more value for customers? And then the fourth question is the value capture. All of those value capture is essentially your revenue minus profit. So all of this need to be revolved around the customer's expectations. And we saw the changes in customer expectations during COVID-19. Touchless technology. They want things remotely done, and they want instant answers. So all of those things have to be addressed in the customer context. Doing digital for the sake of digital can not necessarily lead to transformation.
Wow, what a great answer, Phil.
Yeah, I'll pile on with Phil and just basically say this. Our approach is the customer has to ask the question, Phil, what's in it for me?
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's right.
Your value.
Yeah, one of the things I would like to add is with a specific example. I'll give an automotive example where the dealerships, they're very traditional brick and mortar organizations where there's disruptions happening in the marketplace by the Teslas and the Volkswagens, and where you can go online. It's transitioning from a brick and mortar to a click to brick kind of environment, right? Digital / physical environment. Some of these companies are even further disrupting it in terms of completely virtual, modern retail. They call it modern retail or virtual retail. When you have that kind of transition happening, and a lot of these dealerships across the country are very old school, traditional, family-driven businesses. If you're driving digital transformation in that kind of vertical, you have to change their mindset. And that changing is truly also a verb and adjective at the same time, Mark, that you got to set the customer expectation before even embarking on the digital efforts of what you're trying to do.
Yeah, and so just building on what Mark replied here is, he says, changing is an adjective in this case, not a verb. That's pretty good. You're not trying to change expectations. You are reacting to the already happening change. Very, very well said, Mark. That's fantastic comments. Thank you. With that, I think we'll move on to the next slide. This is another slide from McKinsey that I found recently. After the first wave, how did the CIOs, weather the coronavirus crisis? It shows here high demand for collaborative tools and operating norms have increased the strain on company financials. And what are the top concerns for CIOs? And it's interesting to see the top concerns are all these new collaborative tools and guidelines that we've been going through this. I think we've all had this strain. There's a whole new suite of tools for the IT folks to manage, and they probably haven't increased the number of people, but they said, oh, now you have to manage all these new online tools and then get everybody to perform them and then make it secure So I'm guessing that IT folks are not getting a lot of sleep in these last six, 7 months, you know, and then there's obviously a cost to all this, and we're losing revenue, and you know, there's obviously an increased strain on the company financials. What's interesting to me is when you look at what's at the bottom of this list is the reinvestments are getting lost. And so we're not reinvesting in things. And there's, you know, the boost of online traffic was not thought to be a concern, which we all know was probably a miscalculation by the folks in March when this survey was performed. But increased cybersecurity, we definitely saw that moving to the middle. There were, you know, as soon as COVID started, we started to normalize in June, July, we started seeing a lot of cybersecurity threats. It's almost like there was a brief hiatus from cybersecurity, and then they just came in full bore. And then, you know, the new tech-enabled business models, how do we reignite the company? How do we redefine ourselves? How do we do things more virtually? I think there was an interesting study that's recently from the US labor statistics that said like 45% or so of the work can be done remotely, but that means 55% or so of the work we have to do face-to-face. You know, you can only do so much remotely and keep a company afloat. So those are some of the things that the CIOs are struggling with. So questions, comments on this?
Well, this is Greg. It certainly demonstrates that the coronavirus is producing what we used to call a paradigm shift.
Yeah.
Right. And we have another word called bifurcation. We don't like to use it, but you know, that's what's happening to a lot of industry sectors. And for us, I guess our approach from the consortium is that companies who can pivot, this is an issue. Companies who can pivot in terms of how they run their business and how they leverage their assets, which includes the talent, people, and possibly even reconfigure. There are companies who are reconfiguring their product lines. They're building out new channels with like PPE, folks who've never made PPE. So, you know, with innovation, I think we all agree with that. But it's the issue of who will be able to pivot effectively and move into a different, perhaps new set of channels and do that effectively. So there will be winners and losers in this paradigm shift. And I think that's what essentially the circles represent.
Great point, Greg.
Yeah.
Any other comments from Sri or Phil, or any questions from our audience out there?
No, this is a great slide. Good slide. I second what Greg said.
Yeah. Okay, we'll move on. So this is an older slide going back to 2017 when we were wiser, I think, maybe, from the supply chain management world leaders forum. So again, a bunch of leaders on developing a digital pilot. What was the biggest roadblock that they had, and it lack of overall roadmap, and you know, the lack of priority-based initiative. You know, how do you make this a priority relative to other initiatives, and how does it fit in? I think these are the questions we're still trying to figure out. You know, it's funny that budget is down lower in lack of clear business case or lower in this, but I find it interesting that, you know, coming up with this overall roadmap is still the greatest challenge in these in really deploying a digital footprint into your company And that is what we'll be covering in a few minutes here, is because this is still perplexing, because now companies are forcing themselves to build a digital roadmap and doing pilots, but they may not have an overall strategy. They're just kind of going at it as they can. So that's what we've seen. So any comments on this?
Yeah, I'll contribute a couple of threads here from the Supply Chain Risk Consortium point of view. The interesting element of this graph is how eerily similar this graph looks to other disciplines, other new disciplines that have come into play over the last 10 to 15 years, including supply chain management, which was, it's still new as a discipline, but 10, 15 years ago, this is exactly what supply chain managers were wrestling with. And we are wrestling with the same profile when we talk to individuals and companies about supply chain risk. So it's kind of eerily similar, associated with other past new, quote unquote, new disciplines. And I guess my takeaway from this would be focus on a proof of concept, think big, start small, and implement quick. Those were our two threads.
Yeah,
that was
and very well said, Greg.
Yeah, that's well said, Greg. So one of the things that kind of popped out at me when I looked at this graph is that it's not because of the lack of leadership direction or clear business case. When you look at the biggest pole in the tent here is a lack of overall roadmap and prioritization. In general, it seems like the respondents, which is 67 people who have responded to this, right? They're saying that, look, it's the execution that matters. It's the prioritization that matters, right? We have almost like everywhere, all articles, McKinsey, all the big four firms that you see, they talk about strategy and leadership. We know digital transformation is important. Digitization is important. All those things. The importance is lack of that, but it is the execution of how do you prioritize what is important for your business. That is where is the biggest, which is interesting. I was actually thinking that the senior leaders of the organizations, right, not being able to articulate the need for the business for digitization, right, would be top, but it is more how do we, where the rubber meets the road, how do you make it happen? That becomes the biggest thing here, which was interesting for me.
Yeah, it's clear that the leaders want to do something. The board wants them to do something. I think we all understand that, but not having a clear roadmap is whether you're deploying supply chain risk management or Lean Six Sigma or innovation or whatever that program is that you're trying to improve the value of your company. And digitalization is no different than that. It's the roadmap, and how do you fit it into the culture, into the brand of your company, so you can enhance it, so you get the 1 + 1 = 3. But you want to disrupt your company, but you really don't want to disrupt it. You want to make it better and stronger and better than your competitor. And I think everybody's on the same page as that. I think that if I was a CEO, I'd be sitting there saying, I don't know if I understand exactly what digital transformation is, just like I don't know what agile is, but I know it's good because other companies have deployed it and they've seen value. How does my organization build that overall roadmap? I think it's not a lack of want, it's a lack of direction. You got a question?
Okay. Comment, yeah.
Yeah, what's a comment?
Mark again. Mark says there is a deployment model for any initiative. Agreed. That starts with leadership commitment, you bet, but then moves to a trial or a pilot before putting together a full-blown roadmap. So
yeah, very aligned.
Again, think big, start small, and implement quick.
Yeah, so that probably leads us right into Gartner's deployment approach, very high level, but I think very effective. It's broken down into business alignment, as we've just been discussing, and of course, people alignment and IT alignment for digital. So, you know, setting your vision and your strategy on what you're doing and why you're doing it, come up with metrics, again, this value and return on investment, and benchmark your performance. Are we better than we were in the past? And then get to people and aligning people, and you know, everything comes down to people, and it has to be aligned to your organizational structure, your culture, and build some governance. The tough thing about a lot of these programs is you need to build some kind of governance structure to get it kicked off, so people understand what's right and wrong. In the beginning, you just don't know because it's new. So governance is sometimes viewed as a dirty word, but without it, you got to put some guide rails on what you're doing, on what's in scope, what's out of scope, what you're going to do, what you're not going to do, how you're going to make that pilot successful, because everybody wants the pilot to affect them in their area. And then whatever that pilot is that pilot leverageable across the organization, you know, and can people leverage by duplicating that pilot throughout the organization. So those are the things that you want to look at, and look at the day in the life of the employee, and then the IT alignment of the processes, and looking at your ERP systems, looking at how it fits into your ERPs, makes the user life better, and using the technologies that are available, from the mobile apps to the cloud, the analytics, and all these new technologies that are coming out. So this is a very high level approach. Again, we at EIG, we believe in people, process, data, and technology. Without those four things in that order, building your deployment approach, you most likely are going to falter a bit if you leave out any one of these. And this is what Gartner's saying. So this is right in line with our approach. So there is on this process from Ishka, he says, where is the customer voice included? So the customer voice is included, I would say, in the vision and who you are as a company. And then anytime you're talking about people alignment, although it says employee experience and organizational change, I would broaden that and say, you know, who are all your stakeholders? I think you bring up a great point, and I think this is a weakness in this model, that if we were to look at EIG's approach, it's more stakeholder on who are all the stakeholders involved, and working from the customer all the way through your employees, all the way out the door to your suppliers and suppliers. It's your whole value chain. As we say in supply chain, you have to understand your value chain end to end, and all the stakeholders aligned to that value chain, and the voice of the customer of each of those stakeholders throughout. And those should be taken into account as we grow in people alignment. So I hope that answered your question. Anyone want to add to that?
I can, from my experience, I have seen that the sequence matters. Why I'm saying a lot of times we are very compelled to get involved in the IT technology side of it without having the business strategic alignment of what you want to do, the core driver. So what happens, sometimes it becomes a cart before the horse situation, where the technology becomes the shiny object that we go after, and then the people alignment isn't there, the strategic driver of what you're trying to achieve isn't there. So that's where some of those gotchas you gotta be very careful about when you're trying to do the digital transformation. So sequence matters.
Yeah, great point. Okay, so we'll just move on. Try to get to more Q&A here. This model, again, is a Gartner. Gartner does a great job of building models. I really like them. If we start at the bottom right-hand corner, which is opposite of what you would think, we're going to start here with stage one, where this is of a mindset. So you have your target performance and mindset. So your mindset's inside out, meaning you're internally focused, and the outside in is where you're focused on the customer. So this aligns to Ishka's question about how do we bring the customer value in. If you're at a stage one and you're really focused on service, then your business units are independent. So if you have a lot of satellite offices and they're all independently working to drive customer alignment and they're not talking to each other, you're more of a service environment. So you are feeding the service, but you're not aligning it to your business. So stage two is when you start aligning those business units into different areas, and that's a little bit more mature. But here you get into what I call the pillars of power, or the silos in your organization. They're good because you can drive efficiency in your organization. However, the challenge is you end up fighting against each other in your handoffs. So it can be counterproductive. So again, going back here, when you're at stage one, it's really not scalable, it's not adaptable, and it's quite expensive. As you move over to stage two, you're starting to say that one size doesn't fit all. So you're fighting this. You want to build standardization because you want to leverage it. At the same time, you want to become scalable, but it's not adaptable. So as we move to stage three, we're starting to build an ecosystem. So we're moving from pillars of power to this whole idea of an ecosystem where you have supply, demand, and your product. So we brought in a couple new terms, supply and demand, and the product that you are focusing on. And here your outcome is you're going to be optimizing and you're becoming more scalable, and you're recognizing that value can be equal to profit. So we're moving up and we're looking at the customer. Generally, these models down here, again, you're not paying attention to the customer. So if you're in this world and you're trying to move up to stage four, so if you're in stage two and you try to move to stage four, it's really, really hard. You really have to go through this stage. Three, which is kind of a pain. And this is the painful stage of aligning your organization around supply, demand, and an integrated supply chain. So this is really, your end-to-end value chain of supplier to your customer, and driving that all the way through. And then when you get to stage four and stage five, then you're becoming that scalable value-centric outcomes. And you can start talking about margin to serve. We're talking only about cost out. What do we do next quarter? Cost out. What if the cost causes revenue? Well, we can't talk about that. If that's the dialogue that's occurring, you're back here in this stage two. If you're saying that you can actually leverage your customers in your processes, and it's valuable to understand where you're losing your costs. So if it's delivery or your product to a location and your price is the same no matter where you're at in your delivery, whether you're 1,000 miles away from your source or 5 miles, and you're treating that the same, obviously your margin is lower at the one that's 1,000 miles from your source than 5 miles. Therefore, you're losing money by making it the same price at both locations. So that's where you understand that at stage three, and you recognize that, and you start talking to your customers. You go, gee, I would like to offer you that price, but I can't offer you that price because you're 1,000 miles away, and maybe there's an alternative solution, and you start working with your customers to develop alternative solutions. And then again, you can move to the higher stages. So those are my initial thoughts on this slide. Again, this is a slide you could talk on an hour on. Comments on this slide?
Really, really good. Very well said. Only thing I would add here, Jim, is that in an organization, people tend to very quickly move from stage 1 to stage 4 without realizing that, again, it's a crawl, walk, run, and fly approach. So
generally, when companies attempt to move from stage 1 to 4 quickly, I call it the 1, 2, 3 step. I don't think they ever make it to 4. They do 1, 2, 3, then they reorganize, and then starts all over again. So if you see a lot of CEO changes, what I see is, I call it the 1, 2, 3 step. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. You can see it every 3 to 5 years. 1, 2, 3. And the CEO comes in, blows up the organization, and here we go again. And a lot of companies are unfortunately having to go through those 1, 2, 3 steps over and over again, and they never really make it over this into stage 4. And a lot of them say there's no return on investment to make it to stage 4. My competitors aren't there. Why do I need to be there?
Yep. Great point.
All right, so now we're going to get to the pillar slide, which we've been trying to get to from the beginning. And the first pillar is what we call the data. So we talked about people, process, data, technology. So without good, solid data, we will, you're making decisions based on data. Of course, we're really making decisions based on experience today in most companies. We're using data as an aid and enabler to make decisions. But as decisions become repetitive, we can use more data. But getting good, clean data is really hard. And that's why there's a line in there after data mining for enterprise information management. That's your data governance, which honestly, bringing a couple companies through that, it is painful, it's not fun, but it's necessary in order to have trusted data. So if you're going to make decisions based on data, the data must be trusted. If it's not trusted, then people won't be looking at the graphs and charts that you build. What's happened in the last 5 years is process mining. Process mining has now made that data quickly available so that when you do automate processes using RPA, robotics process automation, then it's worthwhile. So can you go ahead and do process mining and RPA without enterprise information management? Yes, you can. There's hundreds of companies that are doing it every day today. But what happens is they do RPA for a while and then it peters out. It just dies because the data underneath it, they haven't taken the time to fix it. Can you get quick wins by going ahead and using process mining and RPA right away without doing EIM? Absolutely. I would recommend it. That might be the best way in your culture to do it, but make sure you start fortifying with EIM as soon as possible. I would say that there's very, very few companies that have made it to the adaptable cloud data and the enterprise data network. Only the exemplars make it there. So I think everybody else is toying in those first 3 to 5 areas, and most of them are skipping EIM. Any comments on that?
Oh, I want to double click on this. So everything, that's the statement that you just said from an experience standpoint. I have seen numerous times how RPA become the name of the buzzword, and everybody is jumping on the bandwagon trying to deploy it without really doing understanding the process and the data and standardizing that before deploying an RPA, and it has died in front of my eyes. I just want to reiterate what you just said is very, very true, and I've seen that happen in real world.
Yeah. Okay, we're going to move on. We've got 10 minutes to go, so which is good. I think we're pretty much on time. So the second pillar that we espouse is visibility. And again, in visibility, it's all about moving from rear view mirror reporting to enabled decision making. So again, we're making decisions without data. We have some reports, for 40 years, we've been using SQL reporting. That's what I grew up with, so to speak. And then BI reporting came out and we said, that's going to solve everything. But we realized all we're doing is automating stagnant reports. We haven't really done anything with the data. So without enterprise information management and be able to have real-time data, to move to real-time data is a real challenge. And nirvana for many of us is if we could do predictive analytics, that would be wonderful. And then again, these last two, value chain collaboration, network optimization, these are more, I would say, things that the exemplars are using and would take a lot of work to get to. So with that, are there any comments?
This is Greg. I'll just comment on the visibility side. Very, very important in our mind as Supply Chain Risk Management Consortium. Basically because what you don't know about your supply chain can and will hurt you. So the visibility is key. We have maturity models, 4 or 5 stage maturity models. The first stage is to acquire and achieve good supply chain visibility upstream to your suppliers and downstream to your customers. Most organizations, except for the exemplars, do not have good supply chain visibility. And again, we think it's number one on the hit parade, and also the digital ecosystem just enhances our critical success factor of develop a better, more improved set of supply chain visibility, because without that, you are at risk.
Thanks, Greg. So the last pillar that we put together is the hottest buzzword of the last year or so, or 2 or 3 years, I guess, AI. You know, creating an AI ecosystem is a little bit far-fetched from where we're at today. What we're really focused on are targeted AI solutions. So if you notice, there's triangles in each one of these pillars, and this triangle is upside down. Why? Again, it's if you do need to do an AI solution, please make it point source and make sure the data is good. Follow everything on the left as much as you can. Do your process mining, do your RPA, get a good understanding of the data. Try to do as much as you can and making that data real time. The real time aspect of that will then provide value in a lot of the applications for AI. Does it have to be real time in order for you to have an AI application? No, it doesn't. It doesn't have to be real time, but you have to have believable data. And so this is broken up into high level programming, which is where it started. Now there's what they call no code and low code programming. Basically, it makes it much easier to program AI algorithms. And then you have machine learning, which is almost, you know, when you say process mining, you almost put process mining / machine learning / AI. But if you get the machine learning, you're doing really well. There's a few companies that are doing NPL and deep learning and computer vision. There are very few companies doing that. Again, those are going to be very spot opportunities. Of course, there are countries like China, which are doing incredible amount of work in this area. That's what the NSA is doing in this area. But for most companies, for the rest of us, you know, we're really, you know, look to apply in the machine learning low code. If you do this, you know, once you build up and believe your data and get to good reporting, that's a pretty good strategy overall. So these 3 pillars is kind of like a maturity model. You really can't skip too many steps. You can't go from, you know, SQL reporting to predictive analytics. You really need to be going through these different stages. So this is kind of how this 3 pillars have been developed. So open it up to questions, comments. Any questions, comments? Silence.
Good.
Silence is concurrence.
That's scary. I can't believe everybody agrees with me. Hopefully this was helpful for everyone. We got a comment. So with that, we'll move on to within the 3 pillars of this. What is your focus today? So I see some folks have already answered: visibility, data infrastructure. So please go ahead and type in
Jim, there's a question.
Oh, there's a question. Please go ahead.
Yeah, so it's saying, which is your opinion about centralizing? What's your opinion about centralizing or decentralizing reporting?
Centralizing and decentralizing reporting. I think, realistically, you need to think about centralizing reporting to get the best out of your data. I think it's kind of a tricky thing, because you want your reports to be centralized. You want them to be able to be meaningful to your local audience. But you should be able to do that in a centralized environment. But it's all about segmentation of the data. So you may have revenue or margin or volumes, and it's the segmentation of that data that decentralizes it to make it meaningful. So having the ability to segment data is the first key to good reporting. But I would say you need to centralize it first so you can decentralize and make it meaningful to the local leaders. So if there's an office in Houston, that office needs view and is able to segment and tell its own story, unhindered by somebody who's in Chicago or in Mexico City. So everybody should be able to build their own dashboards. Hopefully that answers the question from Ishka. If not, please follow up.
Yeah, I think, Jim, if I may add, I think it's kind of tied to centralizing or decentralizing your data also, because what happens is if you have a decentralized, disparate data and don't have canonicals or something that's more like a centralized repository where you are feeding off of, then what happens is reporting also is siloed and decentralized. So there is a precursor for centralized. I agree with you absolutely that centralization of reporting is critical, but that also has a precondition for data management and infrastructure that you just spoke about.
Yeah, I think the elephant in the room that wasn't we're all familiar with is a local area may have a shadow IT organization in order to provide the local folks the information that they need to make a decision.
Correct.
And to me, that's a failure of a centralized program. The answer is not get rid of the shadow IT. It's for IT to listen to what they really need and build an infrastructure such that you enable that local leader to get, and local leaders to get what they need to make their decisions. So I believe that shadow IT should be out there. I think it crazy. I'll be a little crazy here, and I'll say that I endorse shadow IT as long as it's controlled and managed such that test it, treat it like a pilot, and then look to centralize as needed. But don't shut down localized IT, because you don't want to shut down a local's leader's ability to make better decisions.
Yeah.
That's Jim's thoughts. I've been in those discussions many times.
Yep.
So I hope we're up on the hour. I love the feedback here. Visibility coming out #1, which is right along the lines that we espouse, that without visibility, we can't even start to talk. So data infrastructure is up there. It's good to see that. Making decisions is very good. I saw data a number of times. If you add up all the data, maybe it would come out even bigger. So I see one last question in here before we end the hour. Is there one more question somebody can help me with?
Let me see.
No, it is just Mark dropping off.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, we're straight. That's,
All right. So any other questions that we missed?
no, I think we're good.
We're good.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone. I hope you found it fun and invigorating. I found it fun and invigorating.
Thank you.
I could talk about this for hours. Thanks, everyone, for your great feedback, and have a great day. Stay safe.